everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, back again on Tuesday for the SmackDown after WrestleMania. Sometimes a show where seismic things take place, and there were a few events on this show that did sort of shake up the landscape on the blue brand. There were some people that we maybe didn't expect to see on SmackDown Live, for example, and also there was a title change to talk about as well. So let's get straight on with it and let's talk about everything that happened, because this is what happened at SmackDown Live, the SmackDown after WrestleMania. So we opened the show with a nice feel-good babyface promo from Kofi Kingston, who is the new WWE champion, fresh off his eventful stint on Monday Night Raw last night, where of course he almost sort of had a title versus title match with Seth Rollins. Well, he did have that, but it got interrupted by The Bar, and then it became one of those kind of standard, main event tag team matches, and it did sort of sour all of Monday Night Raw for many people, actually, for what, for the most part, was actually a really strong show. But this one was more of a standard babyface promo to start things off. Kofi really put over, his family and his teammates, and Xavier and Big E really put over Kofi strong as well. They were saying, like, Xavier, for example, was like, this man's my hero and it's been an honor to follow him, and it was just really genuinely heartfelt. But the segment didn't quite end there, because the New Day were cut off, and I was thinking, hang on, who's this going to be? Is it going to be a debut from NXT or something like that? No, it was just The Bar again, and I was like, oh no, that didn't go down well last night. Let's hope it doesn't go badly here. The Bar interrupted and said, right, we challenge you guys to a tag match later on tonight. And the New Day went, hang on, like, there's three of us, there's two of you. That doesn't quite add up, does it? The Bar said, nah, don't worry about that, because we have a new friend that we made on Monday Night Raw, and he's going to join us in taking you guys on in a 6-man tag in the main event of the show. And then he made his entrance, and it was Drew McIntyre. And on one hand, I was like, well, it's cool to see Drew, in the main event of SmackDown. It's a bit of a change-up. But at the same time, I was thinking also, I'm sick of seeing Drew being shoehorned into these just miscellaneous heel factions as, like, the big heavy. He was with Bobby Lashley and Baron Corbin. He was part of Strowman's little stable that he had going on. And now maybe he's sort of a loose ally of The Bar too. And it's just not the best use of Drew McIntyre, in my opinion. Next up, a 6-man tag team match did take place, but not that one. That one would happen a little bit later on. This was the team of Aleister Black and Ricochet, with Mustafa Ali taking on the trio of Andrade, Rusev, and Shinsuke Nakamura. This was nothing special, but it was still a very nicely worked match. Of course, that's pretty obvious given the talent of all 6 guys involved. The result was, again, another big crowd-popping babyface moment, as the babyface team won, with Ali getting the pinfall, hitting the 450 splash on Andrade, I believe it was, and picking up the win for his team. But the action wasn't over, as Ali's celebration was cut off by Randall Keith, that slippery snake Randy Orton, who hit an RKO out of nowhere, and then as he was walking out up the ramp, pretended to be blinded by the lights above the stage, which is just a hilarious nod to his and AJ's match at WrestleMania, which was briefly hijacked by the crowd booing, because obviously the lighting setup at WrestleMania was blinding certain sections of the crowd as the sun went down and the lights came on. And Randy and Styles were both kind of apologetic about this on social media, and it seems now that Randy's still a little bit annoyed by it, and I can totally understand that. I would be as well, were I a professional wrestler, which I'm not. But the segment still wasn't over, as then Rusev was hit by a sneak attack from Kevin Owens, who slid in, hit Rusev with a stunner, which does actually, yes, appear to be his new finisher now, full-time, and then he walks to the back as well. I'm not certain where this is going or which feuds are being set up from this, but I think I'd like to see Ali versus Orton. That would be pretty cool. Owens versus Rusev is a strange one, given that Rusev's in a tag team at the moment, but we'll see where it goes. Next up, R-Truth and Carmella came to the ring and basically said how nice the other one was. Carmella was like, you know what? This man has been a great friend to me, he's helped me enjoy life and stuff. R-Truth was like, she's great, I'm so proud of her for winning the Battle Royal on the WrestleMania pre-show. And it's just, again, another moment that seemed like it was going to be a nice happy promo segment, again interrupted by some dirty heels. Well, no, this time just one dirty heel, but what a heel it was. That's right, it was the reigning United States champion Samoa Joe who came out. Carmella bailed, great friend she is. No, I'm joking. Then him and R-Truth had a brief scuffle, which Joe obviously got the better of, choking R-Truth. Not out, R-Truth was still kind of conscious, but choking him a lot in the Coquina Clutch and then just dumping him out of the ring. But the segment wasn't over yet. This was kind of a little mini theme of this week's SmackDown Live. Segments not quite being over yet. There were further shenanigans to take place. This time, the superstar making a surprise appearance was none other than the winner of the other Battle Royal, Braun Strowman, who came out. And you know what? They're starting to do that thing that they do kind of around shake-up time, where the brand split division becomes a lot less solid and you see the odd Raw superstar cropping up on SmackDown or vice versa. Strowman came out to the ring and, yeah, got the better of Samoa Joe. Didn't get a decisive hit on him. He didn't hit him with the running power slam or anything, but he almost did. But Joe was able to roll out of the ring, collect his US title and head for the back. Personally, this isn't a feud that I'm too thrilled about seeing, just because I'd like to see Strowman build up again from being lost in the shuffle in the build-up to WrestleMania, and I don't want to see Joe lose his belt either, unless it's to elevate him to sort of the main event level of SmackDown Live, in which case I can kind of forgive it. Next up, the IIconics hit the ring and built up their opponents tonight. They're going to be fighting champions. They're going to defend their newly won women's tag team titles, and their opponents were a pretty big deal, guys. That's right, Peyton Royce and Billie Kay hyped up their foes as being 46-0, undefeated, a great tag team. It was a pair of enhancement talent. It was jobbers. It was jobbers. Obviously, the IIconics squashed their opponents in pretty short order. They were called, I think, the Brooklyn Bells. I think that was it. Yeah, it was a hometown sort of thing, I guess. But no, the IIconics won. But interestingly, as they were celebrating, we cut backstage where Paige was watching along, and then she got interviewed and said, you know what? Fair enough, yeah, they won, but their opponents weren't that great. How about next week, I bring along a real tag team and we'll see how well they do then. But she didn't mention who it was. I hope personally that it's Kairi Sane and Io Shirai from NXT. But we don't know yet. She didn't give any hint at all. So I guess we'll just have to wait until next week to find out. Next up, here comes the money. Here we go. Money, money, money. Shane McMahon, obviously. I can't do it quite as well as him. Shane came out to the ring and in a heelish sort of way, this was a very McMahon sort of promo where the McMahons are both heels and plot devices as well to move the storylines forward. He kind of channeled a bit of Stephanie here, I guess, where he heelishly hyped us all up for the Superstar Shake-Up next week. But then he went full heel and bragged about beating The Miz and humiliating George at WrestleMania and all the rest of it. And the heat was really good. I think, you know what, I probably would have liked to have seen The Miz win at WrestleMania, but there were a lot of babyface wins on that show, and you need some heel wins sprinkled in there just to give a bit of balance. And it's led to Shane being booed heavily. So as long as the feud continues and Shane doesn't get the last laugh over an actual established superstar that everyone really likes, then I think I'm fine with it. Shane also claimed that he is the best in the world, and obviously the crowd chanted for CM Punk, and Shane handled it really well, to be fair to him. He just went, please. And that sort of sorted it. That the chance didn't really come back too heavily from that moment on. Fair play to Shane. Good mic work. He's had a lot of experience. Then he got Greg Hamilton in the ring. If you remember at WrestleMania, Shane made Greg announce him as the best in the world several times with more and more emphasis each time. And he made him do it again, basically. This was kind of a rehash of that little segment from WrestleMania. But it went a bit over the top. Shane this time wasn't too happy with Greg. Kept saying, you're messing it up. You're not doing very well at all. What are you doing, Greg? Grabbing him by the tie, bullying him, pushing him. Channeled Vince in this sort of little part of the segment as well. I said he channeled Stephanie earlier. This was a bit Vince McMahon-esque, actually. He then led Greg by the tie out of the ring, up the ramp, and all the time Greg's trying to go best in the world, and Shane's like, not good enough, not good enough. Gets to the top of the ramp and goes, Greg, you've got one last shot, and if you don't nail this one, then the consequences will be really dire for you. And Greg summoned all the energy he could muster and went, the best in the world, and Shane stood there like this, like, yes, I am the best in the world. And I was fully expecting some babyface, probably Miz, to come from the back and just clock him in the back of the head. It didn't happen. Greg Hamilton finished his big, announcement. Shane went, there you go, nailed it that time, mate, and then just walked to the back. Bit of an odd one, good heel promo from Shane, but for some reason it sort of seemed a bit misdirection-y. I was expecting something else to happen, but there were a lot of run-ins on this show, I guess. You couldn't have one in every segment. Next up, a match for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship between the Usos and the Hardy Boyz, Matt and Jeff. This was a pretty good match, actually. It might have been my favourite match on the show. Nothing on the show was like an excellent match or anything, but this was probably my favourite one. It really kicked into a higher gear later on. Basically, Jeff Hardy survived the splash and kicked out, and the Usos did a great job of looking really, really shocked. They both headed up to opposite corners to go for the double splash, which would surely have finished Jeff off, but Matt got on the apron and distracted them long enough that Jeff was able to roll out the way, and the Usos both crash landed on the mat, and the Hardys took control, hit the Twist of Fate and the Swanton Bomb, and now the Hardys are the new SmackDown Tag Team Champions. Interesting call. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see where the Usos go from here, because they were magnificent SmackDown Tag title holders. I was pleased that they retained at WrestleMania. I would have maybe liked to see Aleister Black and Ricochet win, but I didn't mind the Usos retaining at all. But now the Hardys have the titles, and that's a bit of a strange one. I think we'll probably see a rematch, maybe? somewhere down the line. But the segment wasn't over yet, no siree. This time, the person crashing the show was Lars Sullivan, who we saw finally make his main roster debut on Raw last night. He also rocked up on SmackDown, headed to the ring, and just decimated the Hardy Boyz. And our chat during our live stream, thank you by the way to everybody who watched our live stream and joined in, our live stream pointed out to us that this was very similar, of course, to Brock Lesnar's debut back in 2002, where he also beat up the Hardys in like some of his first appearances. So really interesting stuff there from Lars. I wonder which brand he'll eventually land on and who he'll be feuding with, because he seems to have made an enemy out of several people already. Strong start from Lars, he looked really dominant. Not too certain about whether it was wise to beat up the guys who've just won the tag titles, but I guess you could make the excuse that they were tired from the match. Yeah, that makes sense. Next up, Becky Lynch. So Becky hit the ring, soaked in the adulation of the crowd, of course, they were red hot for her, and she said, yep, last night on Raw was supposed to be a celebration, but Lacey Evans had to jump me from behind and ruin everything. But it has made me realise that I'm carrying two pretty big targets. And then basically, Becky went on, in her own very charismatic way, to call out anybody who wants a shot. Come on, take me on for either title, I don't care. I'll fight anyone. And as she was making her exit, she turned back around to pose for the fans one more time. And Lacey Evans came out again, sneak attack from behind. Becky fell over, the belts went everywhere, and Lacey turned and walked to the back. Obviously on Raw, there was no sort of decisive winner in their little scrap because it got broken up. Becky looked like she was about to have the disarmer locked in, but it got broken up before either woman could really get land a decisive move on the other. But this time, Lacey got the upper hand. Yes, it was, a sneaky assault from behind, and then she just walked off. But she did come out of it looking stronger than she did on Raw. Before we get to the main event, at some point during the show, I think it might have been after this Becky and Lacey thing, or maybe after the title change, but at some point, Sami Zayn came out and didn't even make it to the ramp, just stood on the stage with a microphone, was about to cut a promo, and then decided, no, we're not worth it, just dropped the mic and walked off. Really interested to see where Sami's going with this. I am pretty invested. And finally, the main event, which was built up in that opening segment, the New Day versus the team of The Bar and Drew McIntyre. And honestly, this match kind of summed up the night. It was kind of a little microcosm of the SmackDown after WrestleMania 35. A feel-good babyface win, Kofi Kingston picked up the pinfall with the Trouble in Paradise on Sheamus, and then celebrated in the ring with the New Day and his family. And it sort of felt like that was really the theme of the show. As I say, a big, nice babyface victory, nice moment for the crowd to cheer for, but it kind of felt like a little bit more would happen. Yes, there were things on this SmackDown that made it more eventful than I think probably your typical weekly SmackDown episode, but for the SmackDown after Mania, where we've been kind of conditioned to expect more debuts, more turns, more anarchy, more carnage, it was a little bit more nearer the sort of product we're used to. It was a weird one. But anyway, yes, that is what happened on the SmackDown Live after WrestleMania. Thank you very much for watching, and I can't wait to have a little bit of a rest. I hope you've enjoyed all of our WrestleMania weekend coverage. We've certainly enjoyed doing it for you. It's been a delight, and yeah, there's not much more left to say. Thanks very much for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments section down below. You can follow Cultaholic on Twitter at Cultaholic and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do, then please do check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Cultaholic, where you can pledge. And don't forget, of course, most importantly of all, to hit subscribe and to join us.